I've done a lot of strange jobs in my life. Things most people wouldn't believe. But this one, the first one, is the one that still wakes me up at night. Because sometimes, even in the middle of the day, when the world is loud and bright, I swear I can still hear that house breathing. The ad looked harmless enough. Overnight caretaker needed for historic property. Quiet environment. Cash payment. No questions asked. That was it. No address. No company name. No contact person. Just a phone number scribbled in looping black ink. I was broke at the time, down to a few crumpled bills and one can of soup. I'd just been evicted from my last apartment. The world felt like it was shrinking around me, one locked door at a time. So when I saw that ad stapled to the telephone pole outside the bus stop, it felt like a sign. I called the number that night. A woman answered after one ring. Her voice was low, oddly calm, like someone used to speaking in hospitals or confessionals. Do you have a quiet mind? She asked. I thought I'd misheard. What? Your mind, she repeated. Is it quiet? I hesitated, thinking about the noise that lived inside me. The constant hum of guilt, the sleepless nights, the echoes of the river where my sister drowned last year. But I needed the money. So I lied. Yes, I said. Truth, it's quiet. There was a pause. Then, good, we need quiet minds in that house. The directions she gave me led out past the edge of town, where the roads forgot their names and the streetlights stopped trying. The house stood alone on a hill, a hulking silhouette with windows like watching eyes. Every inch of it looked abandoned. Yet the porch light was on, burning steady and white. A woman waited by the door. She was tall, thin, dressed in gray from neck to ankle. When I introduced myself, she just nodded. You're early. That's good. The house doesn't like to wait. She didn't invite me in right away. Instead, she stood perfectly still, listening. I realized she wasn't listening to me. She was listening to the house. Finally, she turned the key and stepped inside. Follow me. Speak softly. Inside the air was thick and still. Not dusty. Exactly. Just heavy. Like a room that hadn't exhaled in a long time. She led me through a hallway lined with portraits. Each one was faded, the faces pale blurs. I swear their eyes followed us as we walked. This is the parlor, she said, stopping at a small room lit by a single lamp. You'll stay here tonight. Do not leave this room after midnight. Do not speak loudly. Do not answer if the house calls you by name. Call me, I asked, forcing a laugh. She looked at me then, and for a moment her expression softened, almost pitying. It will, she said. It always does. Before I could ask what she meant, she handed me an old cassette recorder. If you hear anything unusual, press record. Then she left. The front door closed behind her with a sound like a sigh. For hours nothing happened. I sat in the parlor, staring at the yellow wallpaper and the silent clock on the mantel. The house was quiet, too quiet. I could hear my own breathing, my own heartbeat, my own thoughts scraping at the inside of my skull. Around midnight, the silence changed. It wasn't that I heard something. It was that the quiet itself felt different, denser, closer. Then, a whisper. At first I thought it came from outside. But no, the sound was inside the walls. A faint, rhythmic whisper. Truth, like someone murmuring through plaster. I froze, every muscle in my body locking. The words were hard to make out, muffled and slow. Then they sharpened. Why did you leave her? The voice was low, feminine, and horribly familiar. My blood went cold. Who's there? I whispered. The voice stopped. Then, faintly, you left her. Alone. I dropped the recorder. My hands were shaking too much to hold it. That voice, it couldn't be. It sounded like her. Like my sister. A part of me wanted to run. But another part, a deeper, darker part, wanted to listen. I pressed the recorder's red button and leaned closer to the wall. Sarah, I whispered. The wall answered with a long, dry creak, then silence. I waited, breath held, heart thudding. Finally, the voice came again, soft as breath. "Why did you let me go?" I stumbled back from the wall, trembling. "You're not real," I said, half to the air, half to myself. But the wall whispered again, this time with laughter. A thin, quiet laugh, muffled by plaster and time. At 3:14 a.m., the whisper stopped. The house fell silent again. But I couldn't. I sat in that chair until sunrise, every sound, every creak, every shifting shadow, making my heart leap. When the woman returned, sunlight followed her, like something it was afraid to lose. She didn't ask how my night went. She didn't need to. She took the recorder from my shaking hand, pocketed it, and handed me an envelope. "Payment," she said. "You'll come again tonight." No. I don't think I can," she cut me off. "It remembered you. That's rare." Then she smiled. Not kindly. Quiet minds attract attention. I should have walked away. I should have burned that envelope and never looked back. But desperation makes you do stupid things. The cash inside was thick, 8 crisp $100 bills. Enough to pay off my debt and buy a little silence. Or so I thought. The second night, when I came back, the woman was waiting on the porch. "You brought noise with you," she said. I started to speak, but she raised a finger to her lips. "Don't apologize. The house will take care of it." That night, the whispers came sooner. The same voice. My sister's. Stronger now. Clearer. It said my name like a memory. "Ely, come upstairs." The words echoed through the walls, down the hall, up from the staircase that led into the dark. I told myself not to move, not to answer, but I couldn't stop hearing her. The way she'd sounded that day by the river. The last thing she'd said to me before the water took her. "Don't leave." And I had. I stood up. My legs carried me before my mind could catch up. The staircase groaned under my weight. Each step felt colder than the last. At the top of the stairs, a door waited, slightly open. Light flickered from inside, soft and gray like the shimmer of water at dawn. "Sarah." The door opened wider. Inside was a single mirror. Tall, ornate, its surface fogged as if someone had just breathed on it. As I stepped closer, my reflection blurred. Then it shifted, just slightly, into her. Wet hair. Pale lips. Eyes like river glass. She lifted her hand, and behind the glass, I lifted mine. "Come back," she whispered. I reached for the mirror, and the glass breathed. A rush of cold air hit my face, true smelling of silt and rain, and the deep, dark river. I stumbled back, fell through the doorway, slammed it shut. For the rest of the night, the whisper followed me through the house. It no longer came from the walls. It came from inside me. When dawn came, I found myself on the parlor floor, covered in dust and river water. The woman stood in the doorway. "It spoke to you," she said softly. "You're finished here." She handed me a final envelope. Inside was no money. Only a cassette tape labeled "Apology." Recorded. I never played it. But sometimes, when the world is quiet, I hear her voice again. Behind the walls, in the pipes, in the hiss of my own breath. And I know the house is still listening. The grief cleaner. I thought the whispers would stop once I left that house. They didn't. They just changed addresses. For a week I didn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I felt the wallpaper of that place pressing against my ear. I moved apartments twice, kept the radio running all night, even started sleeping in laundromats, where the hum of dryers drowned out my thoughts. Still, in every silence, I heard her. Money disappears fast when you're trying not to feel haunted. By the time the second envelope ran dry, I was looking for work again. That's when another card appeared, folded into my grocery bag between a bruised apple and a tin of beans. Cleaner wanted. Sensitive environment. Payment upon completion. Call before sunset. No company name, no address. Just a number written in that same looping hand I'd seen before. I stared at it for an hour, heart pounding, Then I called. A man answered this time. His voice was smooth, detached, like a therapist who'd given up on empathy. "Have you done after-death work before?" he asked. "Not exactly." "That's fine. You're detail-oriented. I can be. Good. There's a widow on Caro Street. Apartment 4B. Be there by 8. Everything you need will be provided." He hung up before I could ask about the pay. Caro Street was quiet, the kind of quiet that isn't peace but exhaustion. The buildings leaned together like tired men. 4B's door was already open. A woman in black stood inside, thin as a candle. Her eyes swallowed by shadows. "Come in," she said. Her voice trembled, but her posture didn't. "He's gone. The company said you'd help." I stepped inside expecting smell. Disinfectant. Old carpet, something human. Instead there was only order. Everything neat, lined up, gleaming. No trace of death except the emptiness he'd left behind. She handed me a sheet of paper. "You have to follow it exactly," she said. "If you move the wrong thing first, he won't rest." The list was written in delicate, shaking cursive: toothbrush, ring, shoes. Picture 4 items. "Easy enough," I asked. "Is this some kind of ritual?" She looked at me, then really looked. And her lips tightened. "It's manners." I started with the toothbrush. It sat by the sink, bristles still damp. When I lifted it, the mirror fogged over, as if someone had exhaled. A line appeared in the condensation dough. I wiped it away with my sleeve and put the toothbrush in the trash bag. Behind me, the widow whispered, "He noticed." Her voice sounded more resigned than frightened, like someone acknowledging bad weather. Next came the ring. It lay on the nightstand, glinting in a sliver of streetlight. When I reached for it, it rolled suddenly to the edge and dropped into my palm. Heavy, too warm. A pulse beat in the metal, faint but real. I stuffed it into the bag and turned to the widow. "How long ago did he?" "Please," she interrupted. "Just finish." The shoes were easy, polished black leather, lined up perfectly under the bed. When I slid them into the bag, a faint squeak came from the floorboards. Not a creak, a squeak, like someone shifting their weight. I froze. The widow's hands twisted together. "He's restless," she said. "You have to hurry." Only the picture remained. It hung on the living room wall, the two of them standing in that same room, smiling stiffly for the camera. Something about the photo felt wrong. The man's eyes weren't on her. They were fixed on the photographer. On me. I told myself it was a trick of the angle. I reached up, took it down, and slipped it into the bag. A sound escaped the walls then. A low, wet exhale that rattled the glass in the windows. The widow closed her eyes. "There. It's done." I nodded, swallowing the urge to run. But as I turned to leave, she said softly, "Wait." She opened a drawer and took out an envelope, edges trembling in her hand. "For you." I took it, mumbling thanks. "You should go now," she whispered. "Before he realizes you're still here." Outside, the street felt too bright, too clean. I walked 3 blocks before daring to open the envelope. Inside were $200 bills and a slip of paper. Another list, but this one had 5 items: toothbrush, ring, shoes, picture yourself. My stomach turned. The paper smelled faintly of the same cologne that hung in that apartment. I folded it back into the envelope and kept walking. That night I dreamed of the man I'd never met. He stood in a spotless room, barefoot, head tilted, eyes empty. He pointed to the trash bag at his feet, those 4 items inside, and then to me. "You're out of order," he said. When I woke, the bag I'd left outside for collection was gone. The widow's building was cordoned off by police tape. The news said she'd died sometime before dawn, found lying on the living room floor, her hands clasped around a torn photograph. They said the image was smeared, the faces unrecognizable. But I knew whose it had been. For days I tried to forget, to pretend it was coincidence. I even told myself the envelope had been some elaborate prank. But the whispers came back, different this time, deeper, masculine, echoing from sinks and vents. Every faucet hissed with words I couldn't quite catch. Every mirror blurred at the edges, as if trying to remember me. When I showered, the steam wrote messages on the tiles next. I moved again, 3 cities over. But the noise traveled with me. The pipes in my new apartment clanged in rhythm, a metallic heartbeat that matched my own. Sometimes, late at night, the reflection in the window would tilt its head a second after I did. And through it all, I kept the envelope. Not for the money. I spent that within weeks. But for the list. Because I needed to know if there would be another job, another call, another chance to make sense of what any of this was. It came on a rainy afternoon. My phone rang once, twice. An unfamiliar voice said, "You're on file as reliable. We have manufacturing work if you're interested. Night shift." No questions asked. I almost laughed. Of course it was them. Whoever they were before I could answer. The line crackled. A second voice whispered faintly through the static, "You left something unfinished." Then the call ended. The factory address arrived in a text seconds later. I sat there, staring at it, knowing I should delete it. But deep down, I understood the truth. There's no quitting this kind of work. You just move from one silence to the next, hoping it doesn't recognize you. I didn't go to the funeral on Caro Street. They said there was no body to bury anyway. Just a photo, found face, down in a sink half, full of water. They never said whose face it showed, but I already knew. And sometimes, when the apartment quiets enough that I can hear my own breath, I think I hear his voice whisper through the pipes, faint and patient. Number 5. Then the water runs warm, and the air smells faintly of cologne.